This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager podcast. It's April 15th, 2025. A year ago today, Donald Trump became the first U.S. president to stand trial on criminal charges. He'd already lost a couple of civil cases. A New York court had already ordered that he's no longer allowed to run businesses in that state. This was the federal trial related to hush money, the one where he was convicted on 34 counts. Before, of course, the Supreme Court ruled that he had special immunity as a former president. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Here in Tennessee, court cases for a couple of former politicians are at interesting stages of development. Well, one case is over, but it has an unusual ripple effect that's playing out right now. I'll talk about that one first. It centers on a former state senator named Brian Kelsey. He's the one who got in trouble for the way that he handled campaign funds after he decided to make a run for Congress. He had money left over in the fund from his last campaign for state senate that he wanted to use on that congressional race. But it's not that simple. The state and federal governments have different laws for collecting campaign funds, who can give, how much are their giving limits, things like that. Because those laws are different, you can't just transfer money raised under the state rules into an account that's subject to the federal ones. But again, Kelsey really wanted to use that money. So, and this is something that both he and his co-conspirator pled guilty to doing, he hatched a plan with a friend to funnel a big chunk of that money through a pair of political action committees which would spend it on ads for him. It's basically a very specialized form of money laundering, cleaning it of clear signs that the money was raised at another time for another campaign under another set of campaign finance rules. That is against the law. And so is falsifying campaign finance reports, which they admitted to doing. Like I said, Kelsey and his buddy both entered guilty pleas. They admitted to doing it. But then Kelsey tried to take it back. He said he hadn't really understood his plea or the implications, despite the fact that before he was a legislator, Kelsey was an attorney. He went to Georgetown Law, for goodness sake. Then he said he'd made a mistake because he entered the plea when he was in a distressed state of mind because of some personal matters. Gotta say, I could never quite follow his logic on that argument. I think it's fair to say Kelsey tried as many avenues as he could to try to rescind his plea. Every time a court said no, he appealed to the next higher one. He tried to take it all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. It didn't work. He was sentenced to 21 months in prison. And at that point, he filed a complaint against the prosecutors, accusing them of violating the plea agreement. The judge said, no, you're the one who changed the terms when you tried to back out of it. Then he accused his attorney of being ineffective counsel. That didn't work either. All the way along, he continued to appeal these decisions, and all of this legal wrangling after his sentencing managed to postpone his date for reporting to prison. Now, I'll just note here that the other guy held steady to his own guilty plea. He paid a hefty fine and agreed to 5 years probation. All of Kelsey's filings really dragged out the proceedings. The timeline is honestly kind of astounding. The congressional race in question happened in 2016. An initial complaint was filed in 2017. Kelsey was finally indicted 4 years later in 2021, entered his plea in 2022, spent a big chunk of 2023 trying to get it rescinded, and 2024 was the year of trying not to have to actually show up to prison. Finally, this January, nearly a decade after it all began, Brian Kelsey entered a federal prison. 2 weeks later, President Trump pardoned him. Now we're seeing reports from the Tennessee Lookout that Kelsey has come up with another plan for that state Senate campaign money. There's still about $180,000 in the fund. He's reportedly been calling current legislators, asking them to add an amendment to a bill that would let him use that money to pay his legal fees. I'm sure, after all those filings, he racked up some pretty hefty bills. The saga of Brian Kelsey would be more than enough drama, but things are gearing up now for a totally separate trial for someone who came to prominence in the state legislature at roughly the same time as Kelsey, Both he and Glenn Cassida were in the group of Republicans who really made a name for themselves as the GOP secured a majority in the General Assembly. Cassida became House Speaker, and that position came with some extra responsibilities that a crafty person willing to play fast and loose with the law could turn into an extra payday. And that's what he's accused of doing. As Speaker, it was Cassida's job to decide which companies House members could hire to produce constituent mailings. Every legislator gets an allowance of taxpayer money that they can use to inform people in their district about what's going on in the State House. And they can only spend that money on approved vendors. Cassida and his former chief of staff, Cade Cothran, are accused of secretly running one of those vendors so that they could pocket the profits. The charges also include allegations of bribery and conspiracy to commit money laundering. This case does not cover the other scandal with Cade Cothran that got a lot of press. Cothran lost his chief of staff job after being accused of texting explicit messages to an intern, doing drugs on the job, using a racial slur. No, the kickback scheme seems to have been a way for Cothran to keep making money and keep working with Cassida off the books after he very publicly lost the other gig. Like Kelsey, these two have a co-conspirator who took a plea deal. Unlike Kelsey, they never pleaded guilty. Their trial is scheduled to begin April 22nd, and the widespread assumption is that the current batch of legislators will wrap up their business for the year before that date. The man expected to be a star witness for the prosecution, Cassida's successor, current House Speaker Cameron Sexton. In just a few minutes, we hear about a program to support diversity in country music that's forging ahead despite the DEI backlash. That's coming up after the newscast.
On This is Nashville, we're taking a journey into the identity of this place we call home. The old and the new, the glitzy and the gritty, the monumental and the human. What makes Nashville tick? What makes it unique? And where are we headed as a city? We're going deeper on the day's news, bringing you dynamic conversations and taking you with us out into the community. Join us weekdays at noon. This is Nashville.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Hundreds of protesters marched through downtown Nashville to the State House yesterday, demonstrating against a measure that would allow schools to refuse undocumented students or else charge them tuition. The measure narrowly passed the Senate last week. The bill's sponsor, Senator Bo Watson, says that nonprofits could cover tuition for undocumented students. Chattanooga teacher Crystal Boehm from Watson's district told protesters that's not feasible.
Now, as somebody who has spent her entire life working for nonprofits, this is not a real solution. It is another tactic to pass blame and the burden onto ordinary people. Our kids and our communities deserve a public education system that is well-resourced, fully funded, and meets the needs of every kid.
The bill still needs House approval. Lawmakers have delayed considering the measure until after this year's budget passes. Like the thousands of federal workers laid off and federal programs shuttered across the country, the trickle of cuts on the local level are even more devastating. The National Institutes of Health is the primary funder of biomedical research across the country. Tennessee has received $770 million from the NIH to support a wide range of health research, such as early detection for Alzheimer's, advancing treatment for cancer and traumatic brain injuries. According to data gathered by a science and community mapping program, Davidson County is being hit the hardest, with an estimated $133 million loss. That's nearly twice the amount expected to hit the second largest on the list, Shelby County, with a $70 million loss. Tennessee State University's wetlands restoration efforts have been halted due to federal funding cuts. The university received a $4 million grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to restore the Tiger Bay wetlands in North Nashville. The grant's termination comes amid the Trump administration's funding cuts. The Nashville Scene reports that the 40-acre wetland will still remain a valuable resource to students and researchers despite the hit. The wetland houses various plants and animals like beavers, muskrats, and red-winged blackbirds. It also prevents trash and other waste from running into the Cumberland River, which could contaminate Nashville's drinking water. There are several bills advancing in the State House that target the protection of wetlands. Tennessee's Mental Health Agency is launching an awareness campaign aimed at first responders. Firefighters, emergency medical workers, and law enforcement officers face mental health and substance use challenges at higher rates than the general population. In the awareness announcements, local firefighters and police empathize with the symptoms.
Can't concentrate, angry for no reason, avoiding everybody. It's not going to get better until you're honest with yourself. The good news, mental health help is out there.
First responders will work with Tennessee's counseling services, peer support programs, and public service. Becoming a forensic pathologist takes nearly a decade of training after medical school, but that did not stop Adele Lewis, the chief medical examiner for the Tennessee Department of Health. Hear what she shared on This Is Nashville concerning other training needed.
Many forensic pathologists are kind of quirky people, and I think you kind of have to be in order to do this kind of work. It's very different from other fields of medicine, obviously. You're dealing with police, the justice system, and very rarely do other physicians come in contact with those entities.
There are only about 800 forensic pathologists in the entire United States. That's much lower than the number of deaths requiring investigations. And you can hear the full conversation about forensic pathology at WPLN.org or wherever you get your podcasts. If you've been worrying about filing your taxes on time today, now you've got an extension. Citing storm damage and disaster declarations, the IRS is giving all people and businesses in Tennessee until November 3rd to file. Multiple other states also have disaster-related extensions, including Kentucky and West Virginia. In the latest storms, the National Weather Service has now confirmed 18 tornadoes across West and Middle Tennessee. The most powerful and destructive caused about $30 million in damage through more than 40 miles between McNairy and Hardin counties. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. A Nashville program that offers professional mentoring to underrepresented people in the country music industry has just announced the participants selected for its fourth cycle. Senior music writer Julie Height says that's no small deal at a time when DEI initiatives are disappearing nationwide. She looked into how the program Equal Access is continuing its work.
In her role as manager of Equal Access, Chantrell Reynolds is often out and about, overseeing networking events where program participants meet country music movers and shakers. But today, she's in administrative mode at her desk.
Oh, this is where I nerd out because I love a system.
She scrolls down to the questions that Equal Access applicants answer online.
Do they have a manager, a publicist, or anybody that helps them? How do they describe the music they create? Would you describe it as country? Would you describe it as Americana? What's the main goal of your career? We had around 100 applicants between managers and artists. This has been the highest amount of applicants so far. Also, we've had the lowest amount of spots this year.
In the past, they've had a cohort of 6. This time, they only have the budget for 4.
So I feel like this is getting even more competitive. And it's exciting to see more people applying from different places and just how the story of Equal Access is getting out there and growing.
Cameo Carlson, CEO of a company called M Theory, launched the program in 2022. She envisioned helping Black, Brown, Indigenous, and LGBTQ participants realize their professional ambitions and meet power players on all sides of the industry. That would require stipends and a staff, Reynolds included. Carlson found the funding through Leslie Fram, who was then an executive at Country Music Television. Fram says she saw real promise in the Equal Access approach.
Because a lot of DEI efforts started, and I'm not slamming anyone, honestly, but I do think some people were doing it to check a box, and we're like, well, let's really do something that's sustainable and can actually help some people.
So far, 18 performers and business people have benefited in tangible ways, some landing publishing or distribution deals, and others gaining the guidance they need to start ventures and roll out projects.
I don't know if I can take this old feeling of heartbreak when every season takes me right on back to you.
Equal Access just announced its new participants, and Reynolds is still getting to know their backstories and ambitions.
Mariah Smallbone, she's been doing music for a very long time. She started off in CCM. She's an actress, and she is a Latin woman from California.
Hasta mañana. Hasta mañana.
Michael Warren. Michael Warren's from Alabama. We moved to Nashville a while ago, and he is an amazing country, blends a lot of R&B sounds with his music.
And she don't know that she's the reason that a broken-hearted boy like me could finally start believing she's a light when I can't see it.
On our manager front, we have Tanner Davenport. He is the co-founder of the Black Opry Review, has been in Nashville working within management for years now. Cole Almarie is a trans man from Nashville, has been working in management with Red Light and has started their own company, Undercolor Management.
Reynolds sees this as a particularly important time for Al Marie to join Equal Access. He's the program's first trans member.
And especially in this climate as trans rights are being stripped away, I think being able to support him is going to be phenomenal, especially in the country music space.
It wasn't solely up to the Equal Access leaders to select the cohort. They relied on review boards to help make the decisions. Turning people down was tougher than ever, Reynolds says, since there's less assistance available to them in the industry than there was just a few years ago.
I've seen a lot of programs, especially in Nashville, that are not existing anymore. That is why we have more people applying, because we are one of the last, or one of the few, that are still remaining.
And since Fram is no longer with CMT, a leading sponsor, Reynolds' colleagues are in serious fundraising mode.
They're going to banks, they're going to brand partnerships. We're exploring every single angle. And I think because we are people that think outside the box, that's something that, we're pretty skilled to figure out how to do. We're still going on a 4th year. And I think we will definitely still be going next year.
For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Julie Height.
Like a tree standing in a hurricane.
Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.